Thanks for downloading this episode from Teachers Talk Radio. You can find the full schedule and listen back to all our shows at ttradio.org. Enjoy the podcast.
Good afternoon, listeners, and welcome to the Saturday Lunch Show with me, Famida Choudhary, live on Teachers Talk Radio. Today's episode is one of my personally favorite one, and I'm really excited. And the title is Unlocking Expression, Creative Writing, and Vocabulary. Joining me today is none other than even my inspiration as an English language teacher, and it is Miss Ros Wilson, an experienced educator widely known for her work on oracy and writing development. Today's conversation focuses on strengthening writing outcomes for students whose first language may not be English through routines may not be English basically. And I want to actually focus on the rich language input, how to build up creativity, and how to have the routine of building vocabulary. So, Ross, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Famida. I'm so sorry we had such technical difficulty.
I think that's a part and parcel of our technical world nowadays. But, ma'am, the best thing, Miss Ross Wilson, I really, want to share this with you. I'm so excited because I've been applying the big right elements as an English language teacher, and I really have a lot of honor and awe for you. So I'm so glad to host you for our show today.
Oh, that is so lovely of you to say so. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm delighted to be here.
Amazing. So how have you been? Let me just ask you, how's your health? Everything is fine. How's the weather out
Oh,
there?
yes, I'm a reasonably mature lady now. I won't mention my age, but I think you can guess it's pushed over the hill, let's say it like that. But I'm still utterly absorbed with education. I can't retire. The brain won't shut up. I still love working with schools and teachers. And I went into a school the other day, and it was a secondary school. And when I walked in the classroom, there was a loud gasp. And I don't know if you've seen a picture of me lately, Famida, but I have very purple hair and um,
Um,
rather fancy purple reading glasses, spectacles. And of course, I'm slightly elderly. And one of the boys just shouted across the classroom, "But you're a man." And they'd been watching a show with Dame Edna Everage on. I don't know if you're familiar. You were
uh,
familiar with him. Uh, his real name's Barry Humphries, and of course, he was a drag artist. And I think I probably do look very much like Dame Edna the way he played it.
Oh, absolutely. I have seen a few of your tweets, by the way, and I do connect with what you're saying, and I just want to say that's the beauty of being an educator. I feel, and I'm sure you'll agree with me that we will never retire. I guess it was just that it's learning, growing, and experiencing every day till our I think till the last day.
I am. I do more research now than I did before, but I am finding the world of tweets difficult because I'm trying to move between Twitter and Blue Sky, and it seems difficult to get
Acha.
established in any sort of community in Blue Sky yet. And the Twitter education community is
Mm-mm.
very much falling to pieces, at least in the UK at the moment.
Okay. Also, I see you're not really active on LinkedIn because I thought of tagging you for the show today, but then your profile is there, but I think you're not quite active.
No, I've never quite understood it. I'm not really a technical person. You have to remember, I was born before the days of any tech at all. The only tech we had in our house was a radio, That was the only thing anyone had. We didn't. I remember everything coming from scratch: vacuum cleaners, washing machines, record players, televisions. They all came after I was born. So, consequently, whenever we got something new and electrical in the house, mother would say, "Don't touch it, you'll break it." So, I'm petrified of breaking things.
When I
Thank
hear this, I feel even more honored with hosting you like a legendary person. And I'm just going to start off with our first segment, Ross, if you allow me, and begin our conversation.
Of course, of
And
course.
to start off with is the basic about the challenges teachers often face when teaching writing to young learners, especially in the lower primary.
Well, I've many years, as you know, Famida, working with children who have English as an additional language. And what I find very sad is that so many very talented teachers continue to underestimate the abilities of children who are very new to English. If they have no English at all or very little English, they can there are two options, and one is to treat them as if they were perhaps more like a toddler or a very young child, even though they may be quite significantly older. Or the other one is to ignore them kindly with lots of smiles, of course, until they acquire enough English to join in. And these children are very fluent in their own first language, and often in two, three, four, five, six first languages, as you well know. They
Mm,
just don't happen to have English yet. And what we must do is get those children involved in the talk from the very beginning. Here in the UK, the tendency is to separate children who have the same first language, and that's totally wrong. They should be sitting together so that those who are more competent can explain to the newcomer what the teacher said, what the teacher's expectations are, what the task is. That communication is vital. But you
mhm.
see, here in our country and overseas, when the teachers are from my corner of the woods, quite often teachers are afraid that when the children are talking in first language, they may not be talking about what they're supposed to be talking about. Well, of course, when you have a class in a classroom, you can't hear what the children at the back are saying to each other anyway. But you
Absolutely.
can tell if they're on task. Watching children, you know whether they're working or they're not. And my experience is that children with English as an additional language are much harder working when the teacher can't hear them than are children with English as first language.
Mm. I absolutely agree with what you're saying, Ross, especially the part that when you mentioned where the discussion part, if they're talking and how far the teacher is, getting an access to what discussion is happening. So, like moving on to the further thing that is really on my mind is because writing, if we have to build on that creative writing aspect, it's so important, as you mentioned, the talking, the speaking, as well as, I guess, the vocabulary building. So why is vocabulary such a critical entry point when it comes to writing development?
That's the huge answer to the world, isn't it, Famida? I mean, it really is. Uh, when you think of the baby has no words at all. How do they learn to speak? You know, it is repetition and
Mm,
practice. And there are two ways to talk in front of a baby. I mean, we should be talking to a baby while it's still in the womb. We
mm,
certainly should be talking to it from the moment of birth. But there are two ways of talking to it. We can talk to it as an adult in our adult conversation, and that's great because the
mm,
baby learns the patterns and rhythms of language. But we should also be using the repetition of the very first experience of conversation. So it's those chats that the parent or adult who is caring for the baby use throughout the day that are the same and repeated the day after and the day after and the day after, a little like news used to be in the curriculum many years ago, so that they start the day by saying, oh, it's a lovely day today. What shall we have for breakfast? Shall we have egg or shall we have toast? And it doesn't matter for me if they're using the baby talk and say eggy or toasty. That doesn't matter at all, whatever works for the adult, but it should be similar each day. Yes, let's have them both this morning, shall we? And shall we go for a walk today? So it's that sort of prattle which is repeated, and the baby, that's how the baby learns the language. There is no other source. Repetition and practice. Now, as the child gets to the age of 2 or 3, they should be beginning to develop simple sentences. And if they're not, it's purely because they're not talked to enough in simple sentences. What we have to learn is the differences in the structures of language. We have elaborated language, which is fluent and rich and enhanced and has a wide vocabulary and many sentence structures, and you and I are talking in it today. And then there is restricted language, which is the sort of language we either use in conversation with very close friends or family members. When we don't finish sentences, we might say, hi, how are, oh, wow, it's so great. Do you remember when? And we're not finishing any sentences, and they're not making a bit of sense except to the person we're talking to. And then there's the other restricted code, which can come from our accent or dialect. But in both cases, we're not following the rules of standard English, and we're not using a wide selection of language, of vocabulary. We're only trying to do the job. We're just trying to say what we're trying to say. Now, the child can grow up in a home where there is only the instruction and direction, get up, go to bed, eat this, don't do that, pick that up, go out, come in, shut up even. And that's the only way they'll be able to speak. And today we are getting more and more children starting school here in England who are English born and growing up in English speaking families, but cannot speak beyond that first restricted speech. They have no elaborated speech at all because their parents are so busy. They spend their earliest years on technology, and they don't develop the great powers of elaborated speech, and that is a serious issue. We have got to work on it, and teachers are working on it from the age of 3 or 4. As soon as we can get contact with the children through early years units, is the big concentration must be speaking and listening to enrich the language and to teach them a wider and wider vocabulary. And then once they have got their speaking and listening, you can then work on expanding the language, talking with them, talking to them, teaching them sentence structures alongside the teaching them to write. So on the one hand, you're teaching the skills of writing, letter shape, formation, spelling, sounding, etc. But on the other side, you are working very much on construction of language, and that should still be done with very young children through repetition, starting the day with a few minutes of news, which is always to a similar format. Today is Monday and it is a lovely sunny day. Today we are going to, and then finish the sentence. Today is Tuesday and it is a grey day. Today we are going to, and finish the sentence. And that's the way that children up to the age of 3 or 4, if they haven't already got the extended sentences, will learn them. But then we come to the point of vocabulary, and this is a huge issue. Famida, you must forgive me. I get so passionate, I just prattle on, and you'll have to interrupt me if you want to.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Capel Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to capelprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads. No distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
No, I am also glued to what you're saying and I can connect to it so very well. So I was like wondering, I would have sent this link to the parents as well. It's so important, not only educators, but entire families need to know this way, how to build up the skills of speaking, listening, and writing in triangulation.
Absolutely. And now that so many parents are working and so very busy and also themselves absorbed in technology, I'm afraid that the old traditions of sitting down together, gathering round the table once or twice a day and having a real conversation. You know, I grew up before technology, as I told you, and we used to sit around the table and we would interact, we would discuss, we would debate, we would question and answer, we would argue, we would persuade, and the wealth of rich language that comes through that, Famida, without having to be taught by anyone, because it was going on every day, once or twice a day. But it doesn't happen in many homes anymore.
Absolutely.
And you see, if you look at the number of words, let me play a little game with you, Famida. Do you know how many words you know? How many single words you actually know?
Single words.
Yes, how many different words?
I would know many, but like in number.
It's a silly question, isn't it? How on earth
Yeah,
could you possibly answer it?
correct. Yeah.
And yet I know how many words I know, and I know how
Oh,
many words you probably know. And I know that you want to know how I know how many words you know, and I'm not
yes.
going to tell you. Uh, but I can tell you that I know approximately in the region of 36,666 words.
Oh,
And they're all in a tiny space on the left-hand side of my brain, slightly above my left ear. And I know that you will know a similar amount. We will know somewhere, it's a very inaccurate science, but somewhere between highly educated people know between 30 and 50,000 words. I'm not arrogant enough to put myself up in the 50,000. The average adult around you in the community, doing all the normal jobs of the day, in the shops, in the schools, on the transportation, in the offices, they usually know between 15 and 20,000 words.
right.
And the adults who were less fortunate in education for various reasons may know as few as 12,000 words. So you can see the difference in life opportunities that the number of words you know. And where children used to learn most of their wider and richer vocabulary from reading. In the olden days, we always read a bedtime story to children and they joined in with us as they got better at it. And then they took over because they grew a love of reading for themselves. And you see, good stories are written in special language. They're written in writer's voice, and it's not the same as the speaking voice. It's the elaborated language, it's the enhanced language. When you read the old traditional writers, the language is very, very beautiful. The language of Wind in the Willows and the Jungle Book and all those old books. And that's where children often learn their extra enriched language. And they're not doing that now, Famida, either. So if we do not teach the words, they will not get them. And that is so, so, so important.
So, Ross, when I just, I hope I can continue, or you would want
Of
to.
course, of
Yeah.
course.
So when children come into school primarily, I also agree to this what you said, that they're exposed to this restricted code, whether it could be due to dialect, limited inputs, or directive talk. So, what are some of the strategies that teachers can use to bridge this gap and help them move towards an elaborated language? I know you did mention that the news element, that if we could start the day with it or in class itself, but any other practical strategies that
Yes,
could
yes.
help teachers?
Yes, that daily news, I think, should come back big time for all young children, and especially for speakers of English as an additional language. May I start with a very, very short little mention of a school that I had the huge privilege of doing the startup for, along with a colleague, in
Yes,
Qatar in
yes.
1999. And it was for two offshore gas companies way up in the middle of the desert in Al Hor, when at a time when the gas companies were first starting in Qatar, and they
Mhm.
used to bus the children of the workers on the offshore gas down into Doha to go to school.
Mm.
But the school was school number of school children was rising rapidly, and so my former colleague and I, Mick and I, were commissioned to start this school from scratch, and we opened with 450 primary age children. That's aged from 4 up to 11,
Mm.
and they were the children of the workers, but many of the workers, of course, in something like offshore gas are manual workers. They were labourers from
Mm.
rather impoverished backgrounds from countries like Nepal and Bangladesh. And
Okay.
we had their children in the school as well as the few children of managers. And of
Okay.
those 450 children, only 6 children were fluent in English, and less than 20 had any English at all. And yet, all our teaching staff were recruited from the UK, either directly from the UK or from UK schools overseas already. And that was a formidable thing for those teachers. You know, they had classes in front of them, lovely small classes. That was what we were able to give them.
Mm.
But the children couldn't understand a word they were saying. They all had a member of support staff who was multilingual, but we had 47 languages. You can't cover that in a school staff, you know? So
Right.
I said that the big thing had to be talk. Children had to talk all day, and we clustered the classes with children who had some shared language, even if it wasn't their first language for either child, but at least they would have a way of communicating together, which I thought was crucial. And
Mhm.
then I decreed, I was laying down rules for me, Dad, because I knew that there would be some very talented teachers who would ignore me otherwise. But every classroom door had to be wedged open all day. They were not allowed to close the classroom doors.
Sure.
And
Mm.
I would prowl the corridors at least twice a day to make sure that all the classes were talking. Unless the teacher was doing a direct input, unless she was or he was talking directly to the class, the children all had to be talking. And do you know,
Yeah.
when we started that school, I'm actually on one of the last points in the sheet, so I might refer back to it. But when we started that school, as I told you, they couldn't speak English. In the second year of that school, the 450 who'd been with us from the beginning, only 1 year of learning English, took the English 11-year-old tests, the SATs as they're called.
Yes.
And they took them externally. We had them posted out to the school, and we posted them back to England for marking by English markers. And 100% of those 150 children passed the UK test at a time when only 70% of children in the UK passed.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was amazing. Even I didn't even expect that we could work such a miracle. But we had such wonderful teachers who, once they saw the way it was going, they threw themselves into it wholeheartedly. And we played word games all day. We played with sentences all day. We'd write sentences with words missing. We'd put words in. We'd play snappy synonyms, throwing out words, and they had to try and find other words. And they could find words in first language, and we just turned to the support staff, we turned to the other children and say, does anyone know if that's correct? We didn't mind as long as they were talking and as long as they were code switching. Excuse me, moving backwards and forwards between their first language, their additional languages if other children spoke them, and the English which we needed them all to speak.
I think this is so amazing and fantastic that you mentioned. I really got blown on with the way you mentioned about the time given to the students to talk. And it is actually you taking your rounds and hearing them and having that kind of conversation with students. Because now, when I try to connect back, when we do also, we do give the opportunity for students to speak, but when you mentioned clearly listening to their sentence construction, generally students at that age, that lower primary age, they tend to not speak those complete
Yeah.
sentences. Correcting them and also making sure they get that more and more opportunity to speak in complete sentences. So I think that the talking does, if the talking is done right, I think the rest would be in place.
Yes, it's to be done obviously with love and humour and sensitivity. But whenever children say something, when they answer a question, they're not getting it wrong. They're using constructions that they know in their first language or in another language. But
Mhm.
all you need to do is repeat what they said, but correcting it at the same time. So all you
Absolutely.
do is change the verb slightly if they didn't get it right. And if you're doing that consistently day in, out, day out, all through the day, every day, hit the key words, hit the verbs, hit the key nouns, because they're the ones they're going to need again and again and again. And don't worry so much about the adjectives at first and the adverbs until you get them confidently having a go at anything in English, if you see what I mean.
Absolutely, Ross. I completely agree to what you say and get it very connected. But there's one question that's just come up to me right now is, when you say speaking and listening, when you say let's look at talking, what you feel, of course, it should be a blend of it, as far as I know. When you also mentioned the example of a bedtime story, that is the time, like, where maybe the child is spending more of a listening activity. But I is it like in a ratio of, when I talk about speaking, listening, something should be more of it, or it should be a blend of it?
Well, the speaking and listening for me is the early years into about age 6, going up to 7, is the whole package, because the children don't listen to extended talk or don't understand it well enough. I mean, it's listening with understanding. That's the point
Mhm.
of it, and responding appropriately. Uh, if they're not talked to at length at home, how can they have learnt to listen in that way? So we have got it all the time now, today, in this generation. We are compensating for what the children haven't had at home. We're starting further back. So we have to work even harder to get them where they need to go. So I kind of see it as you've got your entry point into school is speaking and listening, and then introducing the letters and sounds and sentences on the side. But you're actually then moving into what we now call oracy. And oracy is the move into the enriched, enhanced language. You know, the word was created in 1965 by a man called Andrew Wilkinson, but it's just become the big educational thing here in the UK. It should have come years ago. I was so privileged. I was teaching, I was head of English in a Bradford middle school, which again, of course, was 70 odd percent English with an additional language, an inner city middle school. And they were part of the National Oracy Project started by Wilkinson in the 1990s. And it was a wonderful thing. What a privilege that I was invited to be part of it. And yet it did not spread because the first English national curriculum came in at the same time and overran it like a steamroller. So here we are again, and it's being relaunched. And this time I hope it works, that when they are able to talk in sentences, we drive towards talking in this much more enhanced, enriched, passionate, powerful vocabulary with description and discussion and debate and persuasion, all those things. The links between creative writing and actual oratory, which is the public speaking, are very, very powerful. The language is often very, very similar. It's just being used in a different way, whether it's being used to tell a story or being used to persuade a nation to do something. And when you look at the great speakers like Martin Luther King and Churchill and Nelson Mandela, they did not talk in oratory the whole time. They were like you and I. They chatted the way we are doing this morning. But when it came time to make a great speech, they could switch. They were code switching into this great oratory with powerful emotions that swept the people along and made them feel, yes, we can do this. And that is the same sort of power that we want in creative writing, and the richness of vocabulary and the passion. And you see, they practice too, and I practice too, Famida. I'm sure you do too. When I'm going to do a keynote at a conference, which I did just the other week, I practice beforehand because I'm code switching. I don't talk like that all the time. People would think I was a lunatic if I walked into a supermarket here in Leeds and started shouting down the aisle about sweeping people along with me. It was John Adams, who was the second president of the United States. In his diary, wrote those words for the first time in 1761. Practice makes perfect. And that's our biggest rule for talk. The more they talk and the more we practice the constructions and so on, the better they will be.
Ross, I think that perspective on oratory and its connection to writing and storytelling is incredibly inspiring. The reminder that even everyday language can rise to great purpose when used with intent, just like the great leaders you mentioned, is a message like every educator and learner must carry forward. I must tell you, Ross, I have actually, though we are discussing something so important, I literally have goosebumps because I can connect to what next I need to do to get our learners to have that impact, to improve their writing, and to have that oratory skills embedded. So I'm just going to take a short break, Ross, and I'll get back to you with our closing statements and the last segment.
Yes, I'd like to say a little more if we have a few minutes left when you
Yes,
get
yes,
back.
please, please.
Yes, okay, thank you, Famida.
Over 7,500 primary schools are already using Capel Primary to boost confidence in teaching foundation subjects. Our expert-created curriculum planning, lessons and CPD are here to support and upskill you, whether you're a subject lead or classroom teacher. If you've got knowledge gaps in art, music, computing or beyond, we've got you covered. Head to capelprimary.com and empower your teaching today.
Need a smarter way to teach? Wish your lessons had more impact? Eduflix.com. Stream educational films for teachers and students in or out of the classroom. Keep students engaged. No ads, no distractions. Try it free for 30 days at eduflix.com/try. Use code TTR. Get 50% off all orders made before June 1st. Eduflix.com.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
And then there was a little question, I don't know, you must stop me if you have run out of time, but there was a little question about structures and scaffolds.
Yes, yes, yes. I was
And
coming. Yeah.
yes, oh, right. Well, that very much is part of the same thing of building the stamina for writing. Children who are beginning to write, learning to write, cannot write for long periods and they cannot write long pieces. And that makes sense. And at first, we should only be able to, aiming for them to write 1 or 2 sentences. And that's what teachers of younger children do, like their news or like an answer to a question, that sort of thing, or a short line of description. But as they build up, we want to get a structure for writing that is in 3 parts and just call it the opening, the body and the ending. And I put this up on a wall up above the windows in a space that we don't normally display. Put the open word at one end, the body word in the middle and the ending word at the other end. And round them cluster 5, 6 really, smaller words, 5 W's and an H. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And the first weeks you only ask children to try and write the start of a story we'd like to write about, or the start of an explanation of what we did with frogs this week, or the start of a report on who lives in the Amazon jungle, that sort of thing. But they're only writing the opening, and they work on that opening, and they write a simple sentence, and then they may change to a suave sentence opener, and then it might be, can you pop a suave word into that sentence? Can you add another sentence to say why you were interested in that? So you're looking at that and you say, well, would you meet someone in the opening to this story? Or where is this place? Or when did this happen? Or why were you there? So you're using the who, what, you're asking the what questions that are centered around the opening. And all those answers won't be in the opening, but the children can just choose 1 or 2. That's what we tell them. Choose 1 or 2 what words and write a sentence about them, saying why you were there and when you were there. And then when they've got the idea of the opening, you park it. And you do the same with the body. You're now in the middle of your story, children. You've got into the jungle. Who have you met? How did you meet them? Where were you? What happened? Can you use suave words? Can you use 1 or 2 suave openers? And then when they can do that with a body, You park that and you go to the ending. We're coming to the ending of our story now, children. How did this story end? Did you stay in the jungle and live there forever? Did you come home again? Did you go back there for holidays? Who did you see after you left the jungle? When was this? Where did you go? What do you remember? What was the best bit of it? And then we put the 3 parts together and suddenly we have a story. And then over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we do a story in 3 parts. We write the opening, we leave it. And then a bit later in the day, we write the body, we leave it. And then we put them all together again. And I guarantee you, if these children are age 7 and onwards, within half a term, they will be able to write that whole story in 3 parts, single-handed by themselves. They will move from a 15-minute writing activity to a 40-minute writing activity.
Absolutely. I think the questioning technique, that is something teachers must look at it very closely. And Ross, I just want to say thank you so much for those practical classroom friendly ideas that really require no added resources, just thoughtful teaching and lots of talk. I love how you've brought it back to simplicity and creativity, things every teacher can build into their day. Also, I completely agree. It's the consistency of using strategies like vocabulary games, sentence building routines, and paired talk that really embed language and expression in learners over time. So, Ross, before we wrap up, is there one message you'd like to leave for our educator listeners and everybody listening us today?
Oh my goodness me, I have no messages left, I don't think, other than to say that I went back to Qatar, I went back to the school in the desert, and I met a little girl who was 6 years old, Lana, and if I came to your schools in your country, I will have opened my speech with Lana's writing when she was 6 years old and how she progressed in one term from being a non-writer to being a standard 2 writer. And I met her when she was 18 years old, about to leave the school in the desert and go to Cambridge University. And I just think the world is your oyster if teachers will only open the door and give you success. We should all remember, Famida, it is teachers who make the difference, and we are the teachers. Well done, everybody.
That's an amazing end to my show. I don't need to add in anything. And as Ross mentioned, we are teachers and we make the difference. So please continue to make the difference in those students' lives who are under your care, and keep listening to us on Teachers Talk Radio. Ross, I really want to say thanks a ton. I really enjoyed every bit of our conversation, especially the drama aspect that you added. And I think all our classes should be that vibrant and that theoretical as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.